Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled, where the breakthroughs reshaping our health happen right here, right now. Imagine this, a single drop of blood. That's all it takes to predict when Alzheimer's symptoms might steal someone's memory, years before it happens. Not some vague risk estimate. We're talking within 3 to 4 years of accuracy. And that's just the beginning. Because right now, in 2026, we're witnessing something extraordinary. The lines between prediction, prevention, and personalization are blurring in ways that seemed impossible just a few years ago. We can now measure the molecular clocks ticking inside our bodies. We can see the RNA signatures of aging circulating in our blood. We can design nutrition tailored to your unique biology. And we're training a new generation of doctors to think about health differently, not as treating disease, but as optimizing life itself. Today, we're pulling all of this together because these aren't separate stories. They're threads in a single tapestry, one that's redefining what it means to age well. So stick around as we explore the science that's turning longevity from a lottery into something we might actually be able to influence. Let's start with something that would have sounded like science fiction 5 years ago, a blood test that tells you when your brain might fail you. Researchers at Washington University have done something remarkable. They've built what they're calling a clock model, and it's based on a protein called phospho-tau217, or p-tau217 for short. Here's what makes this different from everything that came before. It's not just detecting whether you have Alzheimer's pathology. It's measuring how fast it's accumulating and predicting when you'll actually notice symptoms. Think of it like this. Amyloid and tau proteins build up in the brain like tree rings. Each year adds another layer. Scientists figured out that if you know how many rings are there, you know how old the tree is. The breakthrough? They found the same pattern holds true for blood markers. Plasma p-tau217 reflects what's happening in your brain with stunning accuracy. Here's what the data shows. Take someone whose p-tau217 levels spike at age 60. They typically develop memory problems around age 80, but if those levels don't rise until age 80, symptoms often appear just 11 years later. Younger brains are more resilient. They can tolerate more pathology before things fall apart. Older brains, they're more vulnerable. The margin of error? 3 to 4 years. That might sound wide, but for clinical research, it's transformative. Researchers can now identify exactly who should be in prevention trials. People likely to show decline within the study window. No more waiting around for nothing to happen. And they've built a web-based tool so anyone can explore these relationships in real time. But here's the critical part. The researchers are adamant. Don't use this test on yourself yet. Not outside of research settings. We need more data. We need to understand what it means for individual people, not just populations. The science is solid. The application? That's still being figured out. And that brings us to something bigger. This test is just one piece of a much larger puzzle about prediction and aging. What if I told you that your blood isn't just carrying oxygen and nutrients? It's carrying a detailed record of how your body is aging. We're in the middle of a biomarker explosion. Scientists are discovering that certain proteins, RNA molecules, and metabolic signatures in your blood correlate with everything from brain health to cardiovascular resilience to how quickly your cells are aging overall. And they're not just identifying these markers, they're learning to read them like a book. Take extracellular vesicles. These are tiny bubble-like structures cells release into the bloodstream. They carry RNA cargo that tells the story of what's happening inside cells. Disease-specific signatures are starting to emerge. Cancer cells release vesicles with different RNA profiles than healthy cells. Neurodegenerative diseases leave their own molecular fingerprints. Researchers are now using advanced sequencing to decode these signatures, and the patterns are becoming clearer by the month. Then there's the microRNA story. These are small regulatory RNA molecules that control gene expression. Basically, they're dimmer switches for your cells. Certain microRNAs circulate in your blood, and their levels change with age. Scientists have even built what they call mRNA clocks, biological age predictors based on which microRNAs are present and at what levels. Some research suggests that specific microRNA patterns like MIR21, IFY, and MIR23A3P correlate with aging rate and longevity outcomes. What's remarkable is that these markers aren't just passive readouts, they're actionable. Some studies show that interventions, certain supplements, specific exercises, dietary changes can actually shift these biomarker profiles, which means for the first time, we're getting real-time feedback on whether our lifestyle choices are actually working at the molecular level. But here's where it gets interesting. Knowing you're aging fast, or that your Alzheimer's risk is climbing, only matters if you can do something about it. And that's where precision nutrition enters the picture. Remember when diet advice was simple? Eat less, exercise more. Everyone got the same recommendations, regardless of who they were. Those days are over. Precision nutrition is built on a radical idea. Your genetics, your microbiome, your metabolic rate, your nutrient absorption, they're all unique. So why would a one-size-fits-all diet ever make sense? Today, researchers are using metabolomic profiling, genetic testing, and advanced biomarker analysis to design diets tailored to individual biology. Here's how it works in practice. Say you get your blood tested. They measure dozens of biomarkers, your glucose response, your lipid profiles, your inflammatory markers, your nutrient levels. They look at your genetic variants related to nutrient metabolism. They assess your microbiome composition if possible. Then they feed all that data into algorithms that predict how you'll respond to different foods. For someone trying to slow aging and optimize health span, this is game-changing. Because longevity research keeps showing the same thing. Diet is one of the most powerful levers we have. Blue zones, the regions where people live the longest, all share dietary patterns. Mediterranean diet, plant-forward approaches, moderate calorie intake with nutrient density. But the specific balance that works best, that varies from person to person. One person might thrive on higher carbohydrates from whole grains. Another might need more fat and protein to maintain stable energy. Some people are sensitive to certain compounds in plants. Others have genetic variants that affect how they metabolize cholesterol or respond to caffeine. Precision nutrition takes all this into account. And then there's the emerging data on fasting mimicking diets, a special category that's getting serious scientific attention. These aren't about starving yourself. They're carefully designed protocols where you eat very low-calorie, nutrient-dense foods for 5 days, typically once or twice a year. The research from USC and other institutions shows something remarkable. 3 cycles of fasting mimicking diet can reduce biological age by 2.5 years, while improving metabolic markers across the board. Why does this work? When you trigger metabolic switching through fasting mimicking protocols, your cells activate cellular cleaning processes. Your body shifts from building and storing to repairing and optimizing. Inflammation drops. Metabolic flexibility improves. Your body gets better at using both glucose and fat for energy. But here's what matters. None of this works without the right context. And that context includes movement, sleep, stress management, and social connection, which is why a new breed of clinician is emerging on the scene. Medicine used to have a simple mission: treat disease. You got sick, you went to the doctor, they fixed what was broken. If nothing was broken, you didn't need a doctor. That paradigm is shifting, hard. Longevity medicine flips the script entirely. Instead of asking what's wrong with you, it asks, how can you optimize your health span? And that requires a completely different skill set. Clinicians trained in this approach need to understand biomarkers, genetics, metabolomics, exercise physiology, nutrition science, sleep architecture, and behavioral psychology. That's why organizations like the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, the Healthy Longevity Medicine Society, and programs at universities like UCLA and Tufts are now offering fellowship training in longevity medicine. These aren't fringe programs, they're attracting serious clinicians because they're addressing something obvious. Traditional medicine doesn't prepare you to help healthy people stay healthier longer. A longevity physician today might order biomarker panels that traditional doctors would never think to check. They're looking at metabolic resilience, your body's ability to adapt to different fuel sources and stressors. They're measuring grip strength, walking speed, cognitive function. They're assessing your body composition, your cardiovascular fitness, your muscle quality. They're asking about your sleep, your stress, your sense of purpose. Then they're designing interventions based on the data, not generic advice. Specific protocols tailored to your biology and your goals. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this deep dive into the future of health, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. And turn on notifications so you don't miss when we explore the next frontier of longevity science. Seriously, it helps us reach more people who are curious about this stuff. The training landscape is expanding rapidly. There are certified longevity physician programs, business boot camps for entrepreneurs building longevity companies, and educational initiatives at major health systems. The Blue Zone's partnership is working with cities to create environments that make healthy choices the default. And the Longevity Show, a major industry conference launching in 2026, is bringing together researchers, clinicians, companies, and investors around this emerging field. What's fascinating is that this isn't just happening in isolation. It's connected to broader shifts in how we're thinking about metabolic health, resilience, and what it means to truly age well. You've probably heard the term metabolic health thrown around. But what does it actually mean? And why should you care? Metabolic resilience is the ability of your body to adapt to different metabolic demands, to switch between burning glucose and burning fat, to handle stress without falling apart, to recover from illness quickly, to maintain energy, mood, and cognitive function even when things get challenging. Here's why this matters for longevity. People who live the longest aren't just those who avoid disease. They're people whose bodies can adapt, adjust, and bounce back. And that adaptability is trainable. You can build it. One way to build metabolic resilience is through varied exercise, not just steady-state cardio. You need strength training, which preserves muscle and bone and improves metabolic rate. You need high-intensity intervals, which improve cardiovascular capacity and trigger metabolic adaptation. You need low-intensity movement, which builds aerobic base and promotes recovery. You need variety because your body adapts to everything, so you have to keep it surprised. Another way is through strategic eating patterns. And this is where fasting-mimicking diets and intermittent fasting come in. When you give your body periods of low-caloric intake, you're training it to use stored energy efficiently. You're triggering autophagy, cellular cleanup. You're improving insulin sensitivity. You're essentially running a metabolic upgrade, but it has to be done right. Random fasting without nutritional support is just suffering. Strategic fasting with proper nutrient timing and composition, that's a tool for optimization. The emerging picture is this: metabolic health isn't about a single number on a scale. It's about your body's ability to regulate blood sugar, manage inflammation, produce energy efficiently, and adapt to changing demands. And we can now measure this with precision. Continuous glucose monitors show you how your body responds to different foods. Advanced blood work reveals your inflammatory status, your lipid profiles, your micronutrient levels. Then you use that data to make decisions. You optimize your diet. You add the right exercise. You time your eating and fasting strategically. And you track the changes in your biomarkers to see what's actually working. This is the future of health. Data-driven, personalized, continuously optimized. But there's one more piece to the puzzle, and it's something many people overlook entirely. Let's zoom out for a moment and see the bigger picture. You've got blood tests that predict Alzheimer's onset years in advance. You've got biomarker panels that reveal your aging rate and disease risk. You've got precision nutrition protocols tailored to your unique biology. You've got fasting-mimicking diets that can reduce biological age by years. You've got a new breed of clinicians trained to interpret all this data and design personalized interventions. What's happening is a fundamental shift in how medicine approaches human health. We're moving from reactive, waiting for disease to appear, then treating it, to predictive and preventive, and we're doing it with unprecedented precision. But here's the thing that ties it all together. These aren't isolated innovations. They're part of an interconnected system. Your diet affects your biomarkers. Your biomarkers tell you whether your interventions are working. Your exercise patterns influence your metabolic resilience, which affects your Alzheimer's risk, which shows up in your blood markers. Everything connects. Take someone who discovers through blood testing that their p-tau217 levels are rising and their Alzheimer's risk is climbing. A traditional doctor might just say, there's nothing we can do until you get symptoms. A longevity physician says something different. They look at that biomarker and work backward. What modifiable factors might be contributing? Poor sleep? That's a major Alzheimer's risk factor. Metabolic dysfunction? That's connected to neuroinflammation. Social isolation? That accelerates cognitive decline. So they design an intervention. Better sleep hygiene. A precision nutrition protocol tailored to improve metabolic health and reduce inflammation. Movement patterns that improve cardiovascular fitness and cognitive function. Maybe strategic fasting to trigger cellular repair. Then they retest the biomarkers in 3 months. Did the p-tau217 level stabilize? Are the other markers improving? Is the biological age clock slowing down? This is medicine as optimization, and it's becoming increasingly accessible. The companies building the technology are growing. L-Nutra, which makes the commercial fasting mimicking diet, just became an innovator partner for the Longevity Show. Manulife launched a global longevity institute with $350 million in commitments. Academic centers like Stanford, Harvard, UCLA, and Washington University are all building longevity research and clinical programs. Bloomberg even launched a television show dedicated to longevity with David Rubenstein. What was fringe 5 years ago is becoming mainstream, and what's remarkable is the speed of it. The science underlying these advances, understanding amyloid and tau, mapping the human genome, developing precision medicine tools, that took decades. But the translation into clinical practice and consumer accessibility? That's happening in years now. Of course, there are challenges. Access is still limited by cost. Insurance doesn't always cover longevity testing and interventions. There's a knowledge gap. Most doctors aren't trained in this approach. And there are ethical questions. Should we be testing asymptomatic people for disease risk? How do we handle the psychological impact of knowing your future risk? How do we ensure these tools don't just become toys for the wealthy? But the direction is clear. We're moving toward a future where your health is continuously monitored at the molecular level, where interventions are personalized to your unique biology, and where aging itself becomes something we can influence. Not perfectly, not for everyone equally, but meaningfully. Oh, and if you're watching on your phone, there's a hype button right below this video. Smashing that really helps channels like ours get discovered and lets the algorithm know you're into this stuff. So what do you actually do with all this information? First, understand that most of these tests and interventions are still emerging. The Alzheimer's blood clock is validated in research, but not yet recommended for general screening. Precision nutrition is advancing fast, but it's not standardized across healthcare yet. Longevity medicine is real and growing, but you might have to seek it out rather than finding it at your local doctor's office. That said, there are concrete steps you can take today. Start with the fundamentals: sleep, movement, nutrition, stress management, social connection. These aren't sexy, they're not new, but they're foundational, and they directly influence every biomarker we've discussed. A 2024 study showed that adherence to healthy diet patterns, Mediterranean-plant-based approaches, was associated with significantly longer health span. Not just living longer, living better, longer. If you want to go deeper, find a functional medicine doctor or longevity-trained clinician who can order comprehensive biomarker panels. Get your baseline metabolic health assessed. Understand your Alzheimer's risk factors. Find out your inflammatory status. See where you stand. Then use that data to design interventions. If your glucose response is poor, focus on the types of carbohydrates and meal timing that work best for your body. If your inflammation markers are elevated, look at diet, exercise, and sleep as your primary tools. If you're showing early signs of metabolic dysfunction, consider strategic fasting or fasting mimicking protocols under professional guidance. Track the changes. Retest in 3 to 6 months. See what's actually working for your unique biology. This is the power of precision medicine. It's not guesswork. It's data-driven optimization. And stay informed. This field is moving incredibly fast. New biomarkers are being discovered. New interventions are being validated. The companies and institutions building these tools are multiplying. Follow the research. Understand that today's cutting edge becomes tomorrow's standard of care. Most importantly, recognize that you have more agency over your aging than you probably thought. You can't control your genes, but you can influence how they're expressed through diet, movement, sleep, and stress management. You can't prevent all disease, but you can reduce your risk through measurable, data-driven interventions. You can't live forever, but you can optimize for health span. The years you spend healthy, functional, and engaged. That's what all of this is really about. Not adding years to your life, though that might happen. It's about adding life to your years. The future of medicine isn't about waiting for disease to strike and then fighting back. It's about seeing the warning signs in your blood, understanding your unique biology, and intervening before problems develop. It's about precision, personalization, and prevention. We're living in the moment when that future is becoming real. Blood tests that predict Alzheimer's years in advance, biomarkers that reveal your aging rate, nutrition tailored to your genes. Clinicians trained to optimize health, not just treat disease. The science is here, the tools are emerging. The question is whether you'll use them. Thanks for spending this time with me exploring the future of aging and longevity. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone curious about their health. Subscribe so you don't miss the next frontier of science and technology that's reshaping how we live. And check back soon, because tomorrow's breakthroughs are happening right now, and we're going to keep breaking them down for you. Until next time, stay curious, stay healthy, and remember, the future of your health isn't written yet. This has been Tomorrow Unveiled.
Let the future be